Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima Tavali. On today's show, we will be reviewing Italy's Euro 2024 qualifier against North Macedonia from Saturday. A disastrous debut for Luciano Spalletti, a 1-1 draw, which puts Italy's Euro 2024 qualification hopes in some jeopardy. We will analyse what went wrong. There's been a big debate on the state of Italy's attack. Why can't Italy produce top attackers anymore? That was so apparent on Saturday. There's also been a debate on the lack of Italians who are playing in Serie A and the lack of youngsters, young Italians playing in Serie A. What changes should be made for the must-win game against Ukraine on Tuesday? Italy have no other alternative. They have to win. Is Gigi Donnarumma in decline after his big mistake against Macedonia? And should he even be dropped? There's been a lot of calls for Tottenham goalkeeper Vicario to take his place. We'll also, away from the international scene, discuss a bombshell story this morning in Il Giornale, which reports that Juventus have been put up for sale. The Agnelli family ready to sell the club after 100 years. And this has been denied by the Juventus's holding company Exor. But is there anything behind the story? We'll talk about that. And I would say to everyone, do stay till the end for one of the all-time great Prem faces of the week. You will love the one we've got for you this week. So for all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode, which we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend's Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday where we answer all of the questions from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. You can also sign up to be a paid subscriber on Spotify now. We'll provide the link in the description. Same price, same terms. And for all of you that do listen on Spotify, Apple and iTunes podcasts, we'd really appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating, give us a follow and a like. We're on YouTube as well. And this all really helps us to grow and do more quality content. So let's get into today's show. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Making your own podcast is fun, but the production of podcasts can also be challenging if you don't have the right software. With Zencastr, the whole process is quick and straightforward. Here at the Italian Football Podcast, we aim to have the highest of standards, and Zencastr provides crystal clear sound and fantastic HD video quality. Furthermore, it's really easy to use. Even boomers like Carlo can manage. There's nothing to download, just one click, and we start recording each episode. Zencastr ensures that your podcasting experience is easy and enjoyable. You don't even have to leave your browser, as it possesses all the tools required to get the episode done, from local recording to automatic post-productions. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code ItalianFootball, one word. You'll get 30% off your first 3 months of Zencastr Professional. We want you to have the same easy experiences that we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
So, about an hour after we recorded this podcast, the full podcast, there was the news, an absolute earthquake of Paul Pogba failing a doping test. So what we did is Nima and I decided to hop back on and record 10-15 minutes on Pogba and the news, and we've added it to the start of the podcast. Originally, we started talking about Juventus, the news of Juventus and the Agnelli family potentially selling Juventus. So if everything is a little bit disjointed, that is why. But it's such a huge story that we had to talk about it. So what has actually happened is ANSA announced this afternoon that Pogba had shown elevated levels of testosterone in his blood test. He was tested after the opening day win away at Udinese, 3-0 win of Juventus on August the 20th. Pogba didn't actually play in that game. He was on the bench for the whole game, but he was one of those that was chosen by controllers to randomly chosen to undergo a test. So that those tests have come back and they have found elevated levels of testosterone in his blood test. So just so everyone's clear, Nima, can you just explain what actually happens now with Pogba?
Well, different sports usually have like a different, the process. But usually what happens is that the player can request a counter analysis to check that there were no errors in the sample. And I think within the next 7 days, a B sample will be analyzed by the same laboratory that tested the A sample. And then if the positive test is confirmed, then that player is automatically suspended, awaiting a verdict. We are yet to see anything from Juventus, an official statement. I expect that to come as soon as possible. But yeah, I mean, if the test is confirmed positive, he will be suspended, and obviously there'll be legal proceedings where he will have to explain how he got testosterone, which is the substance we're talking about, which is an anabolic steroid. I mean, that's what it is. So that's what we know now, at least. So yeah, it's quite the.
And if the B sample comes back positive, then he risks a ban of up to 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, if more even. I mean, it depends, doesn't it? I mean, we've seen people get lifetime bans. From what I understand, this is his first. He's never been involved in anything like this.
No.
So yeah, I mean, I don't want to say too much because we've not exactly had time to look everything up here. But yeah, I mean, several.
Yeah,
years.
This is breaking news. This is breaking news that we're
and I don't want to say too much. I just want to, because I want to wait. I want to do my research and do my reading properly.
Yeah, we haven't had a response from Juventus. We haven't had a response from Pogba. It depends what how he would, if the B sample comes back, how he would then fight it, assuming that he fights it and he doesn't admit that he took the sample. I mean, those that dopers rarely do admit it. So how does he fight it? How does he present his case? Does he say that, it was taken unknowingly? Can it be down to a medical issue? Some players, some people with medical issues have to take drugs, and that can result in drugs in the system. So we're at the very early stage now to see what could happen.
But just so we understand, the only thing we know is that it's testosterone. That's what they. And I mean, what are they? So anabolic steroids are drugs that athletes take to boost their strength and add muscle. These drugs are also called anabolic androgenic steroids. They are made to work like a hormone that the body makes called testosterone. And testosterone has two main effects on the body: helps build muscle and causes features such as facial hair and a deeper voice. And the anabolic steroids that is used by athletes, they're often used, often forms of testosterone made in a lab. We don't know how anything more than it's testosterone that it is. We don't know how he's got it into his body. We don't know we don't know anything. So it's very, 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 very preliminary, other than him having tested positive. An A sample has been tested positive for testosterone.
Yeah, absolutely. And if confirmed, and he gets this banned, I mean, it's the end of his top level career. Let's be honest about that. I mean, some would say that his top level career is already over. But it would definitely confirm it. It would be the final nail in the coffin of what has been a disastrous return to Juventus. I mean, it's been a total disaster from day one. The number of injuries, 8 different injuries. He's missed over 50 games, well more than 50 games. He started one match since returning to Juventus, which he returned, remember, in the summer of 2022 on a free transfer from Manchester United. He's played 214 minutes of football, 0 goals, just the 1 assist, which came in the Europa League. So, and you look at the number of injuries he got another one in the last game. And I mean, he is, let me be clear. I mean, this is something that actually could be good for Juventus. To say it in a horrible way, because they will have grounds to sack Pogba. There are if.
But you got to be careful before we get to that, because
if he tests positive.
No, but you see, that depends. How did he get it into his body? It's not. They have to find out how did it enter his body.
Potentially, there will
got something. This is another thing. If it was it something the club doctor prescribed? Then Juventus don't have grounds to sack him.
Yeah.
Then usually the contracts are written that way. But again, I want to wait. I want to be very, very. If it's without the club's knowledge, if it's not via something the club doctor prescribed or approved of, and he's had this in his body, then yes, potentially Juventus could tear up his contract. We have the case with Adrian Mutu, if we remember a few years with that Chelsea sued him for breach of contract. That could possibly happen. I mean, there's so many possibilities that could happen here.
Yeah, it depends. Absolutely. No, you're spot on. It depends how, what the decision is in terms of how that got into his system, and what can be proved and not proved. But Juventus potentially, like you said, if it wasn't prescribed by the Juventus doctor, or proven to be, accidental, in which case, if it's proven to be accidental, then he's not going to get suspended anyway.
And I mean, it depends. I mean, accidental, they're very stringent with these things. I mean, and like I said, we will discuss this more at length when we have more information. But right now, we had to discuss this because it's breaking news. It literally is. And this is where we are. But we will definitely.
Well, all I'm saying is at this stage is potentially, potentially Juventus could have grounds to release Pogba. And if that was to happen, it could be a good thing for Juventus because the salary, he's got 3 years left on his salary. He's on astronomical wages. I think it's 24 million net over 3 years. So however much that is gross, 40 million or whatever it is.
It was decreta crescita and how many years?
Something like that. Yeah. So, and Juventus have already been in talks to try and extend his contract to amortize the cost more.
Spread it out over more years.
Spread it over more years. So, I mean, this could end up being a good thing for Juventus, but obviously, it's not good for the club's image. It's terrible for Pogba's image. It puts a bit of a black mark on his career. If the B sample comes, if this is all ends up being, true, then, it's not.
I
think
good. We're at the beginning of a very long and legal process here. But the next thing to wait for is, of course, Juventus' statement, Pogba's statement, and of course, then the B sample. And of course, Pogba will be given a chance to make his defense. But yeah, we're in for another legal circus featuring Juventus.
Fantastic! Can't wait.
That's all I've got to say about that.
Okay, then. Right. Okay. Well, this is what we did. We did this after the end of our podcast, which we recorded before. So now you're going to listen to the start of the original podcast. So we'll leave that with you guys. Enjoy the rest of the show. Okay, right. Before we talk about Italy, I want to start with a breaking story this morning in Il Giornale. A bombshell of a story, maybe a sensational story, time will tell, in Il Giornale, which reports that the Agnelli family have decided to sell Juventus, that the club is in crisis with the judicial and legal problems, and with the balance sheet economically, which is devastated between losses and debts. And it's now been urged by the family, the Agnelli family, after an accounting cleanup, to put the club on the market. Now, this story has immediately been denied by Exor. We've put out a short statement saying that it's completely without foundation. It's not true at all. So, that is what we would expect, of course. But Nima, what do you make of all this?
I can't remember which episode it was, but I remember us talking about this, that maybe with Andrea Agnelli leaving and the Elkan wing taking over, they're not interested. And given the amount of money that they've had to put in, Exor cash injections, time changes. Times change, rather. There is no need for the Agnelli and Exors to own Juventus anymore. Before, it served a kind of social currency purpose, but now it doesn't. It just costs them. And the recent events of the last year and a half has definitely frustrated that side of the family, and Exor's shareholders are anything but happy about the cash injections they've had to do. So I remember us talking. I remember vividly saying that, look, I think that might actually happen. It could happen. I still think we're a long way away from that. And by that, I mean, I still think we're a couple of years away from the Agnelli family or from Exor selling Juve. But I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. In fact, I'm starting to feel that more likely than not, we will see a Juventus without the Exor, the Agnelli family within 5-6 years, maybe. I think it's likelier than not, to put it like that. Doesn't mean I'm saying it's going to happen.
We should clarify that the same journalist that run this story, I think it's Toni Damaschelli, I think his name is.
Okay. And Osvaldo De
Paolini.
Yeah.
Now, one of these two, I'm not sure which one it is. I think it's the former. Reported exactly the same story in 2006 that Juventus were for sale. So that obviously didn't happen. So take that with a pinch of salt.
I read this story and I thought it was very decisive of it's going to happen. I don't think so. I think that these discussions are being had. I think they're being had in a much more serious way than at any point prior in Juventus's history, because Italian football is such a structural mess, as well as financially, as structurally, and all of the things that we speak about quite a bit, that the Exor, Exor are just a multinational company now. They're not. This isn't like it was back in the day when L'Avvocato owned it, okay, or ran it. It's a completely new time. It's a completely different time, and I think Andrea Agnelli, the shameful way that he was pushed out or had to resign, and completely give up all of his political capital in not just Italian football but international football as well. I think, Exor, together with the cash injections in the hundreds of millions that they did, which their shareholders were not happy to do. I mean, let's remember, football is not, in Italian football at least, is not you don't make money off of it. Most clubs don't. So for Exor, this is just a giant black hole that sucks money and doesn't give anything back.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Italian football as well, the direction it's going in. And we spoke about this at depth on the last show, about the TV deals plummeting every year, the TV ratings plummeting. I remember Agnelli and getting mocked for it. And Agnelli, for all of his mistakes that he's made, and he got so many things wrong in his last few years at Juventus, he was also very forward thinking. He talked about the Middle East being the next place,
the next frontier, Asia and the Middle East being the next frontier.
He talked about the drop in interest among the younger generation in football, and how difficult it is to make money from football. And he also, if there's any club or any person that tried to modernize Italian football in many ways for all the other mistakes that were made, it was Agnelli. Well, it was Agnelli. It was Agnelli driving that at Juventus.
Well, Aurelio De Laurentiis was also talking about things like that. But the problem is that...
No, but I mean, if you look at the things that are modern, that are actually more modern, Juventus are the most modern club in Italian football by quite a distance. Starting from the stadium, being there first with the stadium, to all those kind of things. And Agnelli was fighting a lone battle on many of these things. Not everything, but, because he made mistakes. Of course he did. huge mistakes, and we've seen the results of that. But I think that the bottom line with all of this is that Italian football is in this situation where we complain about it every week on the pod, and we went big on it in the last show about Italian football is never going to modernise, and we're so far behind the rest of the world, and for that reason, what hope is there? If Juventus, if Exor and the Agnelli family or the Elkan branch, who already don't care, as you said, John Elkan. He doesn't care. He doesn't have a clue about football either. He's just, So,
why are you calling him
reason?
John? Isn't his name Johan?
John Elkan.
I thought it's Johan Elkan.
No, John Elkan.
Is it John? I thought it was Johan Elkan.
John Elkan. Yeah, I mean that's what everyone calls him.
Okay. I thought I don't know why.
John Philip Jacob Elkan.
Okay, cool. I don't know why. I've always thought it was Johan Elkan because he's got like this kind of Germanic. I mean, they do have. They're not straight up Italian as well. They also have like Germanic roots, don't they? I think Swiss or is it Austrian?
His dad is Alain Elkan, who is I think French Jewish. I think.
No, okay.
If I'm mistaken, yeah, not
sorry.
mistaken. So I mean, I think that if they're weighing things up, what is the future of Italian football? And from a financial point of view,
I think
what is the financial value of having Juventus? Then I can understand why this would be a consideration. Doesn't mean I'm saying they're going to sell the club in a year or 2 years, but I do see that as if you're making a business decision, which direction is Italian football going in, and football in general. I mean, I think it's something you consider, isn't it?
I completely understand them, and I think this was inevitable, and I think that because I don't see Italian football changing and structurally changing anytime soon, so therefore I think that the investment is going to be similar to the Red Bird kind of groups, if you know what I mean, like those kinds of entrepreneurs that come in and modernize it that way. Anyone hoping for Arabic saviors, sorry, they're not going to do that. There's no need for them to do that. They're too busy with their own projects, and also they're not stupid. They see everything. Everyone sees the problems, and people are thinking, well, why should I invest in that?
No, it's like the Newcastle. It's like PIF said, isn't it? When they
Amanda Staveley said it best. We were considering Inter and AC, but we decided against it because Italian football is structurally a mess. That's just a fact. People can get triggered as all they want about that. That is not hyperbole. That is, to me, that's just an objective fact. And as long as that's true, I mean, nothing changes. This is how it's going to be. And the problem with this is that when you have the Calcio is back thing, to me, is just that ad, as funny and silly as it was, this is how deluded the people running Italian football are. They really think that because they had 3 teams in the final of all European competitions for the first time ever, that Calcio is back. Literally, that's what they think. And that, to me, shows a level of delusion.
And they're conquering North America.
Well, but that's rooted in the delusion. They are deluded because they don't live in reality. They don't understand how far behind they are. And when you have people that don't even understand the problem, how are you going to solve it? So I think this is classic Italian problems in the sense that in Italy, things have to go straight to hell, like pear-shaped on a almost biblical scale, for things to be able to build up again. And I think that with the Elkan or the Agnelli family leaving Juve, you have to find a buyer first as well. And they're not going to sell Juve for cheap, just like Suning are not going to sell Inter for cheap. And with all due respect to Milan, Elliott kind of still own Milan. I mean, essentially, Redbird bought Milan with the loan from Elliott that needs to be repaid. So you've not really seen a sale there, even though legally you have. There's been a transfer of a deed and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure by the end of it, Jerry Cardinale and all these guys will deliver the money to to sell it, to buy it fully on. I think it's just one of those payment plan things. But that's Milan, okay? So it's not going to be easy for Juve or
I think that Nima. I think that the Super League was a desperate final move. One that was executed terribly, as we've discussed. But this was the Super League. It was out of good intentions, I think, from Agnelli. That it was a desperate move to make, from Juventus's point of view, and to a lesser extent the other teams in Serie A that went along with it. But from the way that Juventus was seen, it was a desperate move to make the Juventus sportingly and economically viable, because right now it isn't. We've seen the mess Juventus are in. Obviously, a lot of those were their own mistakes, but the balance sheet, as this report said, is a mess. It's improved a bit, but then what happened last season with Juventus now being thrown out of Europe has now kicked them in the butt again. So it's a mess. The club is in a mess. So I think that is the reason why. Whether the however much truth is in this story, I think that there definitely is some smoke there. I think. Okay.
I think you're right. 100%.
Let's move to the Italy national team then. Not onto better news, onto more bad news. The debut of Luciano Spalletti on the Italy bench, his first game after replacing Roberto Mancini, who of course resigned last month. It was a crucial game in North Macedonia, which Italy really had to win, and they could only manage a 1-1 draw. They took the lead just after half-time from Ciro Immobile, and then a free kick in the closing 10 minutes got a share of the points for Macedonia. Again, Italy failed to beat Macedonia after the humiliation of being knocked out of the World Cup qualifiers and the World Cup playoff last year. So Nima, this was a terrible performance and a terrible result, wasn't it?
It certainly was. It was more the performance is one that I find more worrying, especially in the attacking third. I thought Italy's weaknesses were ruthlessly exposed. And they were a little bit unlucky, of course, defensively as well. Although you could really kind of argue they were kind of lucky because North Macedonia missed a sitter, didn't they, in the first half? And I'd say a draw was probably in the
fair result.
Yeah, that was the fairest result. I mean, I felt Italy were toothless. I don't blame one player or one, this is Ciro Immobile's fault or this is Zaccagni's fault, and neither of them were very, very good. I think Barella was pretty much the only one that was of any decent quality, if we're perfectly honest.
Barella and Di Marco, for me, the only ones that made anything happen.
Exactly. But I mean, for me, Barella was the clear man of the match. But for Italy, that is. I'm hearing a lot of, the pitch was this, and it was. It did look like
it was abysmal. The pitch.
It looked like a potato farm, and I think that
it's unacceptable that they play on a pitch.
This is what I mean. I mean, it looked also from a
it looked like
health point of view.
Yeah,
players can get injured. And that worries me. It really does.
No, it was one of the worst pictures of it. It looked like gang wasteland behind my dad's shop. That's how bad it is. We have this plot of land behind which no one ever goes on, and honestly, that is kept in better
stories.
That is kept in better condition. And
wait. Your dad has a cake shop which it's a pasticceria, and it's it's really good, but behind it there's gang wasteland.
There's just a bit of land behind it which no one has ever ventured to since 1991. It's just it's like Terry Waite's allotment. It's just, and that grass is honestly better than the. I mean, it was terrible, the pitch. I mean,
the pitch was terrible, and in this day and age, I think it's really pathetic that we can't that UEFA and FIFA can't go in and somehow financially these countries and get it sorted, because it's come on, But again, the pitch was crap for both teams, and Italy just didn't look prepared. That's what I think more than anything. I didn't feel that Italy were mentally prepared, but I don't feel they were tactically prepared. I think Spalletti needs more time. And to be honest, everything happened really quickly before he was appointed, and then all of a name a squad, and so on and so forth. But no, it wasn't a good squad. It wasn't a good performance. I think Spalletti has his work cut out for him. I think everything we said on Friday. I don't want to toot our own horn, but I'm incredibly proud of what we did. Our preview going into it, I thought our tactical analysis of everything, basically was true. It's what come to pass, and also the omissions, Scamacca and Udogie, they would have definitely helped Italy in this game. I think Scamacca, for sure, having someone who can hold the ball up. Ciro Immobile doesn't hold the ball up, and that's not his role. That's not who he is. And I know he scored, and I'm not blaming him, but again, Cristante as a regista, back three. Gianluca Mancini got injured. Zaniolo. I mean, it's just it was everything that went wrong.
The attack was just abysmal. We'll come on to the attacks. We've got a segment where we're just going to look at the attack and this crisis that this decade-long, or longer than a decade now, crisis that we've had Italy's had in producing attackers. We'll come on to that in a bit. But I mean, we didn't create many chances. I think Tonali hit the post in the first half when he went through. There was a few kind of chances that could have been chances but didn't come to pass for a bad final ball in the first 15, 20 minutes when Di Marco was very dangerous in those first 20 minutes. There was a Mancini header off a corner from a Di Marco corner that went just wide. And that's about it. After Immobile's goal, I can't pick a single chance Italy had after Immobile's goal.
No,
not a single one.
About the attackers, but
but the midfield, and you said about the analysis that we did on Friday, I did point out that one of my concerns was who's going to be the Zielinski player in the Spalletti system, because the Spalletti system morphs from a 4-3-3 to a 4-2-3-1 in the same game, in the same moves. And I don't see Barella or Tonali as being that kind of player. They're mezzalas, basically. So who's going to be the link? And we saw that there was no connection between the midfield and the attack, the natural fluid connection between the midfield and the attack. So who is that Zielinski play going to be? We'll talk about who the change is going to be. There is some talk that Pessina could come in, but so that I think that was an issue.
I would love to see Pessina come in now.
Yeah, he's a possibility. Also, like you said there with Cristante, there was no build up from the six. Again, as I said on Friday, for all the golden generation Italy have had in central midfielders, right now, if we're assuming that Verratti and Jorginho's Italy careers are over,
they can't be over,
or they're certainly past their best anyway.
Yes.
Then Italy don't actually have a ready-made regista right now.
No, they don't. They really don't. They don't have anyone who's the natural. They went from two fantastic ones to not having anyone. Which is so quintessentially Italian football. Everything's so extreme, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right now there isn't. And that's why I'm saying, Jorginho or Verratti, who do you pick? I probably go with Verratti at this point.
It has to be Verratti, but I mean, he's going to Qatar. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's not ideal. But, I think that, without labouring on the point, I think that there was some structural issues there, but there were certainly quality issues. But I do think that Spalletti. I don't think Spalletti had a great performance, but himself either. The things that the changes he could make. Of course, he didn't have time for the squad, so that's one thing altogether. But the squad selections we were critical of. Scamacca and Udogie should have been in the squads, and both could have been handy here, like you said. The starting Zaccagni, I didn't get.
No, me neither.
I mean, I don't think he's. For me, it's clear he's not an Italy national level player. But then I would say that about a vast majority of Italy's attacking options, but certainly not Zaccagni. And then why he stayed on the field for so long? I think until like the 83rd minute, when he was having such a bad, irrelevant game, he was doing nothing. So that was a mistake. bringing on Zaniolo he's nowhere near match fit, Zaniolo, and he gave away the free kick for the goal. He did one of the worst. I don't know if it was a shot, a pass, a cross. I don't know what it was in the second half when he kind of like toe poked it sort of like into row Z. It was the most abysmal thing I've ever seen. Zaniolo is very frustrating when he plays like he played on Saturday, because I don't think I've seen a player that makes so many unforced errors, where there's no one around him and he'll just give the ball away, or he'll overrun it, or he'll miscontrol it, like under no pressure at all. He's just way too inconsistent in that way for all his talent. But most of all, we're talking about Udogie being left out, Nima. He brings on Biraghi for the final 10 minutes when when it's at 1-1 to try and win the game as your left back. And Biraghi just proceeds to basically hit cross after cross into the fullback, straight at the fullback. What the hell is going on there?
Yeah. No, but this is what he had on the bench. I think I don't. Biraghi shouldn't be on this team. I just don't think he's good enough. And as much as a fantastic free kick taker he is, and he is a fantastic free kick taker, but that's about it. His crosses are abysmal. I remember when he came to Inter during Conte's first season, I think it was, and I was very happy for him to come because he was a player with a background at Inter's youth team. He's an Interista. He stood in the Curva, and I was like, well, that's good for the club and the culture of the club and the team to have someone like that so close to the club and the colours. And I really wanted him to do well, and his weaknesses were so ruthlessly exposed that season. Positionally, his timing, his read of the game, his crosses he makes Candreva look unbelievable when it comes for cross accuracy. He's not good at that, and especially against collected defenses. It's just simple. This is just a simple way of analysing it. Biraghi is just nowhere near international quality, and it's just as simple as that. You don't need to go into any depth with Biraghi. He's just not good enough. It's embarrassing. No, he's really not.
And he's 31 years old.
He is. That's another thing. It's this kind of, why are we resuscitating the Biraghi thing again? It's just. Hopefully he's understood. But I really, really want to talk about Donnarumma.
Yes, we have to talk about
now. We're talking. He has stagnated in his development. I think the worst thing he could have done was to go to PSG. He doesn't fit in there, and he hasn't improved. And I think that he should have let that. He shouldn't have let that goal in. I'm sorry.
That's a huge error. That's a huge error. If you let in a free kick on the side that you're protecting, then it's a goalkeeping error. If the free kick taker curls it over the wall and puts it on the wall side, then assuming it's in the corner or the top corner, sometimes you just have to clap your hands, take your hat off, and say well done. But if you get beaten at the side that the goalkeeper is protecting, I don't care if it's 150 miles an hour and in the top corner, it's a goalkeeping mistake. And so that's a huge error. It's a massive error. And so it was, it's his fault that Zaniolo was stupid to give away the free kick, but ultimately it's a save Donnarumma has to make.
It's not just that, it's also the fact that I just don't think he's stagnant. I think he's stagnated in his development. I don't think you could say that he's improved, but it's not been. No.
He's definitely not improved.
But I'm saying, even if you want to make the argument that he has improved, he has, but it's not been by much. And that's the thing. The trajectory he was on, he's deviated from that.
Before we recorded this podcast, I went to our friend Robin Berner, who's one of the top kind of French football journalists and experts, and I asked him about Donnarumma. I said, well, what's he been like in his 2 years at PSG? Is he, would you say he's done well? Has he lived up to the hype and everything? And he said, no, he hasn't. He says he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't really been good either. He said he would give him a rating of 5 out of 10. I think the French grade a little bit lower than say the English or the Italians do.
Well, the English for sure. The English grades in football are ridiculous. Everyone gets a 10. As soon as someone has a good game, they're automatic. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. And when they're bad, they're all given ones. It's like there's no.
Yeah. Well, Donnarumma was bang in the middle at 5, and he. I mean, from what I've seen him at PSG, I mean, I thought he was unlucky with that one when PSG got knocked out by Real Madrid, where he got his pocket picked by Benzema. But he hasn't improved, and I think that certainly his kicking is for the longer term. I think his kicking is becoming a concern because we've known
it is a concern. It's not become a concern.
Well, it's becoming a concern more because we know that this is the way that modern football is going now. That pretty much all goalkeepers need to be good with their feet. We can see it's a clear trend, and if he's going to get
clumsy with the ball, he looks so clumsy.
Well, he is because he can't use his feet. His feet are about size 20 feet, so he has barely got control of his feet. He's like the BFG,
He really looks. I was going to say, he looks like it. He looks like he looks. It doesn't look good, and I'm sure you can improve that in training if you work on it and stuff.
No,
I'm not saying that you can develop a technical ability, but I'm saying you can improve so it doesn't look like that.
Well, I think he has improved a bit. I mean, do you remember when he was 16, 17? I mean, he could barely kick the ball. He was like, you get those Sunday league goalkeepers where the fullback takes the goal kicks because the
guy's so
the goalkeeper can't kick the ball. He was like that basically. But I think some of the fullbacks did take some goal kicks from Milan at the start. Actually,
they did. The thing is, though, I think two things. I think he has to leave PSG as soon as possible, and secondly, I think that it would do him a world of good if, given the form Vicario is in right now for Tottenham, and how good he is with his feet right now against Ukraine, I'd probably play Vicario. I'd probably play Vicario. Yeah, because Italy have to get a result. They just have to. And also, sometimes getting benched is good for you. And if you can't take that the right way as a professional, well, then you're not a top player. Simple as that. All top players have been benched at one point in their career, and they've taken it the right way. And if Donnarumma can't take it the right way, then he's not a top player. And
it's a tough one. I mean, I don't know if I would drop him for this game because I feel like we need to retain some stability and some experience because we've already lost Bonucci, Verratti, Jorginho. We're coming off a negative result. Do we want to go in there and throw in another
for this game? I would, especially if you've got. Here's the problem: you've got Cristante and Donnarumma doing your build-up. Like, seriously, you need to have someone who's good enough. And
Vicario is decent with his feet. He is pretty good with his feet.
He is decent with his feet. He's not
amazing, but he's pretty good.
No. But we're not talking about amazing. I'm not saying that he's Onana in terms of the passing. I mean, Onana's unbelievable when it comes to the build-up phase. It's like playing with Pirlo in goal at sometimes, with the vision, the timing.
I agree that he has to leave PSG though, Nima. I agree. I think that club is a circus. It's not good for stability. It's not good for the stability of anyone. But to be honest with you, I feel like if Luis Enrique is still there at the start of next season, I don't think Donnarumma will be there. I think Enrique will look to move Donnarumma on because we know Enrique. He wants his goalkeeper to be good with his feet. It's a crucial part of his game.
Of course it is.
There were rumours, which were all denied, that he wanted him out already this summer. I do think that there's possibly, again, I think there's probably some smoke there.
I think he needs to leave, and I think he would be open to leaving. And if he wants to leave, where does he go? Well, who
can afford him in Italy? Can anyone afford him?
Yeah, but I mean, I've always thought that he's got Juve written all over him. To me, anyway. Unless we see this kind of mad PSG coming with Donnarumma plus ridiculous amounts of cash for Mignon. And how
maybe Saudi Arabia. Let's
if
move
he
on.
Goes to Saudi Arabia, if Donnarumma goes to Saudi Arabia, then it would depress me because that would be the end of his career at the top level. With all due respect, because it's one thing to for outfield players, but a goalkeeper standing there in Saudi not doing anything for the next couple of years, no. Waste.
We'll see. We'll see. Let's move on though from one crisis to another to the crisis in attack, because this crisis, we've spoken about it before, but it was so clear in this game that I mean, Italy just didn't have anything in attack, nothing at all. But this is a crisis that has been going on for over a decade now, probably the best part of 15 years almost. Since the kind of Del Piero, Totti, Inzaghi,
Luca
Toni generation were in their mid-30s, they got into their mid-30s and kind of around about Euro 2008 kind of time. Yeah. Since then,
it has been a problem.
There's nothing been produced at all.
I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Italy has for 60, 70 years produced world-class goalkeepers, central defenders, and strikers. And now goalkeepers are fine, but central defenders and strikers, well, except for Bastoni, who else is there in central defense?
I think we've got, central defense. Yeah, I think we've got some.
And if we look up front, it's very.
Well, look at the current crop of attackers for this match after the Chiesa withdrawal. We had Zaccagni, Immobile, Politano as the starting trio. I mean, that's, with all due respect, that's a Conference League standard attack.
No, Europa League.
Europa League at best. Politano I like in Napoli, but I feel that anybody that plays alongside Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia is going to automatically be 50% better than they are. And that's how I feel with Politano. And I like the guy. I enjoy watching him. He's got a bit of pace. He's nippy, but his level is raised massively by playing next to two phenomenons.
Well, of course.
And we saw that. I mean, he was terrible in this game. And then you look at the others in the squad. We've got Retegui, Raspadori, Gnonto, Zaniolo, and now Orsolini has now been called up to replace Politano. Now, who do these players play for? None of these players play for big teams. And when I say big teams, I mean elite teams. I mean, Lazio and Napoli, you'll get some saying, but Lazio and Napoli are big teams. They're not elite teams.
Well, Napoli are Genoa reigning champions, but other than Napoli, it's Genoa, Leeds, and the Championship.
Leeds, a championship team. We've got a player from the Championship playing for us. And I like Gnonto. I believe in his potential if he can have the right development. Now, then we have a player that's Galatasaray / Aston Villa. We have a player at Bologna.
Well, barely.
Orsolini doesn't even start for Bologna. He's not even a starter for Bologna. He's backup. He's backup right winger since Undoy and the other guy, the Swedish lad, came in. What's his name? Karlsson came in. He doesn't even start for. He's not even a starter for Bologna right now. He's been called up, and according to the latest reports, may start against in a must-win Ukraine game. Now, this is the level of crisis. Then the other alternatives, we're looking at Grifo, who's played a lot in the last year or so, who plays for Freiburg. Even Schemaka, who we all want to play, and who we both believe is, got the biggest potential of everyone. Yeah. He plays for Atalanta. Again, these are not elite teams, and this says it all. Because if your attackers are playing for this team, that tells you how big the problem is. And this is, like I said, this has been going on for 15 years. The crop from the last 10 to 15 years, you can go through all of them. I mean, look at Euro 2016. We had Eder and Pele. Graziano Pele playing as our front choice attack. That was all down. I mean, that was just down to a miracle from Antonio Conte.
Antonio Conte was.
They got these two.
I will die on this hill. That is his greatest managerial feat. To get that team as far as he did, and to beat Spain the way they did, it was just
unbelievable. But then look at us, the World Cup 2018 playoff to qualify against Sweden. Manolo Gabbiadini was our starting striker for that. The World Cup that we just failed to qualify last year in the playoff. Who comes on? Who did we bring on as a substitute to try and rescue the game? João Pedro from Cagliari.
In his 30s, like
30 or 31 years old, coming on. I mean, when you just put
this is a crisis.
Just let that sink in.
Yeah, exactly. This is not hyperbolic to call it a 15-year-old crisis. That's what it is. It is a 15-year-old crisis. It has been going on for long. I mean, the 90s were ridiculous. Vialli, Mancini, Baggio, Del Piero, Inzaghi, Totti, Chiesa, Ravanelli, Signori, Montella, Zola. The lowercase players were Di Canio and Del Vecchio. I mean, Di Canio would be a superstar in this team. Del Vecchio would be a star. I mean,
Casiraghi, like these kind of players.
Casiraghi, yeah. I mean, this to put it into perspective, this is insane. And it's just, I don't understand what's going on because it's been so long now. It has been far too long.
It can't be put down to just a bad. It can't be put down to something cyclical.
It's been 15
because there's always
years
ebbs and
now.
flows with any nation.
Yes, but it's been more than a decade, Carlo. More than a decade.
And it has been 15 years because, like I said, those players I mentioned at the start, like Inzaghi and Del Piero, they played until their they were still pretty good into their mid-30s. So they kind of still hung around, didn't they? Until... And like Di Natale was still really good.
Yeah,
like 34,
Di Natale was
35.
unbelievable and he bloomed in his 30s.
Yeah.
But he, but again, that was just he belonged to that kind of older generation, didn't he?
Yeah.
But this is not good enough. And I look at the under 19, under 20, under 21s.
It's the same problem. Yeah. There's no one. We're not producing anyone. Those teams don't have any attackers either.
Sebastiano Esposito, Andrea Pinamonti. Jesus, that's depressing.
No, I mean the under 21s. The reason they went out, there was. I even predicted it before. So Italy will.
Balotelli was the last one.
Yeah.
I'd say it's probably the last high quality, but there were other issues.
I'll tell you what. I watched. Did you watch under 21s draw 0-0 against Latvia? They drew 0-0. They couldn't even break down Latvia.
No.
The day before on Friday, first qualifier, the new under 21 team.
Yeah.
They drew 0-0 at Latvia. Exactly the same problem. Nothing in attack. Couldn't. Latvia put 10 men behind the ball. Our attack we couldn't break them down at all. It's the same problem. So this is endemic. And what is the cause of it? I mean, I guess part of it is a wider problem of talent production, which we'll come on to. There's a separate segment I want to talk about. But I think changes to the game have hindered us. I think the number 10 disappearing has definitely been affected Italy.
Well, the classic number 10, you no longer can have the trequartista / fantasista jogging around on the pitch. It's a faster game, more athletic, and then that doesn't necessarily suit Italy. And
also the death of the penalty box striker as well. That's another position that has died. The kind of Pippo Inzaghi, Gerd Müller, Gary Lineker kind of striker.
Yeah, Fox in the box.
They're in the box. Dead. Yeah, exactly. Now that has disappeared, and the number 9 now needs to be able to, be more all-rounded and be able to play with.
But then again, the thing is, it's not just an Italian problem. We do have a crisis in top number 9s in world football in a way that I can't remember ever in my lifetime. I mean, aside from Harry Kane, Erling Haaland, Robert Lewandowski, Karim Benzema, Osimhen. Yeah. Like, what are we talking about?
Most of the best number 9s are all in their 30s, aren't they? 30 or over. There's very few in their 20s. I mean, how many top number 9s in your 20s can you name? You've got Osimhen.
And I think that is the effect, a direct effect of the tiki-taka explosion, the false
to an extent.
9.
Yeah, I think it's that and the fact that we don't create specialist footballers anymore. We don't get specialist positions anymore. It's all everyone has to be complete.
This era to be over, the Guardiola era to die, and literally, I will be the guy with that GIF of the dancing.
We don't want to hear that, Nima.
The guys from the Ghana who bury are dancing when they bury the guy. Like, that's me burying tiki-taka. It has been the most depressing era in football ever, where football is this like ridiculous, abstract art form, and everyone's supposed to be good at everything, and you end up having no specialists anymore, and no one's really good at anything. It's just, I can't stand it.
Yeah, total footballers, isn't it? It's getting worse then. We've now got inverted fullbacks as well now.
Vomit.
No, I do think that's affected, because I think that, and I've said this before, I think that one of the reasons that Italy was so successful for so long is, number one, we always had the best defences, and defence is dead now, also because of changes to the game.
You're not allowed to defend anymore.
Yeah, you're not allowed to defend. The rules don't let you defend anymore. The offside rule, the everything, So that affects us, but also because we were smarter. Italians, the way that, we still have the best managers in the world because we are the best thinkers in the game. But on the football pitch as well, we were the best. We were the smartest. The furbo, the being able to get away with little things here and there. But also, if you want to translate that into forwards being smart, and that includes penalty box strikers and number 10s. But penalty box strikers, Inzaghi Inzaghi was a genius. I
I
insist
love
he's
him.
one of the.
People who say that he was not a good footballer are idiots, in my opinion.
Inzaghi for me is one of the most intelligent footballers in football history.
He was
in fact,
so smart.
I'd probably have him
Study
in top
his
5.
pattern of like his movement pattern,
Yeah.
his timing, knowing when to do what. It was
his read of the game, his anticipation, his everything. So those kind of players, those kind of players have died, and even someone like Immobile, as much as we criticise him, like if he was around 30 years ago, would be much better than
as I've said. This pod and others, when I've done deep dives on Immobile, I think he's unlucky. He was born in the wrong era. If he'd been born in an era before that, he'd have much more respect. Football's changed. The number 9 that he is not where football is right now. So I do think there is a huge element of that. But no, there's a problem. And I think that Spalletti needs to do what he does when he comes in. He needs to just basically phase out people. He needs to, this Immobile being captain nonsense needs to stop. He needs to build around Scamacca.
To be fair to Spalletti, he did come out and say that the tradition of the most capped player automatically being the captain needs to change. It should just be the one that's the leader.
I missed that, and that's music to my ears.
He did say that, to be fair. So fair play again. Like I said on Friday, it was out of his hands. So I don't blame him for that, but it is, I think.
No, but this means this is good that he comes out and says that. That means he's going to change. That means
if he's got the power to. I don't. I said, it was out of his hands. It wasn't his decision to make. So, but I think that there's these changes to the game have affected, and I think obviously the lack of infrastructure, the Italian football, everything that we criticise about how badly it's mismanaged from top to bottom, that affects the talent pool. If the club game is run badly, then that has a knock-on effect. One of the reasons why England, and we're going to talk about the lack of Italians that are playing in Serie A in a minute. But, one of the things about England, about the Premier League, is that even though their numbers are pretty similar to Italy in terms of number of English players playing in the Premier League, they're producing much better players, much more and far more youngsters in England, because the infrastructure, the academies, everything from top to bottom, the nutrition, the best doctors, the stadiums, everything, the training grounds, everything is allowing these players to develop and develop into better players. And obviously, you speak to anyone. I remember reading an interview from Fabio Cannavaro, because he's coached outside of Italy. He said that I would have realised this if I hadn't have coached outside of Italy. But the infrastructure in Italy for producing and developing players and training players, compared to what he's seen even in China, which is not a footballing country, he says it's just Italy's light years behind. And that, I think, obviously is an issue in producing players. And obviously the attacker is a certain type of player. Why it's only attackers we're not producing while we're producing lots of midfielders? I don't have the exact answer to that, but it's a
combination of everything you've meant. I think it's a combination of all of the above.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to this foreigner debate, because this has become a debate. Sky Sport were talking about it at the weekend. I tweeted it out yesterday, some of their figures about the number of Italians that are playing in Serie A, which is one of the lowest in Europe for minutes played. And I'll read it out just so that everybody can see. So that these are the number of foreigners in Serie A squads. Udinese, 30 of their 35-man squad. They've got a big squad, Udinese. 30 of the 35 are foreign. Lecce, 22 of 30 are foreign. Milan, 21 of 28. Torino, 21 of 26. Genoa, 21 of 28. Salernitana, 21 of 27. Verona, 21 of 32. Bologna, 18 of 26. Frosinone, 18 of 31. Napoli, Roma and Atalanta, all 17 of 26 are foreign. Inter, 16 of 25. Lazio, Fiorentina and Sassuolo, 16 of 28. Cagliari, 14 of 30. Juve, 12 of 24. Empoli, 12 of 28. Monza, 10 of 28. So only 4 teams have less than more than 50% of their squad are Italian. And it's even worse if you look at the starting 11. So I'll quickly go through that. Milan have 1 Italian that starts, Calabria. Napoli 2 or 3 on average, Inter 3 or 4 on average, Juventus the same 3 or 4, Roma the same 3 or 4, Genoa 2 or 3. One of them is naturalised Retegui. Cagliari and Torino 3 on average, Udinese 1 or 2, and one of them's a goalkeeper. Sassuolo 3, one of them a goalkeeper. Lecce 2, and Bologna. If we're saying that Orsolini is no longer a starter as he hasn't been this season, then Bologna is 0. So those are the stats. Just want to make it clear before I ask your view, Nima. This isn't about blaming foreigners, right? So before anybody gets twisted, that we're all, Nigel Farage,
Carlo Salvini,
Salvini or Britain first.
Salvini.
This is just about a basic logic that if you don't have many Italians playing football, I think then you're going to struggle to produce.
To build. Here's the thing: I think it's a little bit more difficult and convoluted, if you will, than that. I think the previous point you made was, well, actually, in the Premier League, the English players are similarly to this in terms of how many they're playing. The difference is that the English players actually play, and they're producing better players due to infrastructure, due to everything that you mentioned. The way that they view the game, it's more modern, and the high intensity and all that stuff that they basically, the homegrown rule, I think, is a brilliant idea with the Premier League, which makes sure that money stays in the country, meaning that, it doesn't leave the league. They basically, by having that homegrown rule, they have basically not only inflated the value of English players, but it also means that the money stays in England, in the Premier League, in the English ecosystem, not just the Premier League, the Championship or whatever, because they're such a high sought after asset, the players, which it's really, really smart. But then it's also everything else we discussed in the previous segment. I do think that there is a problem with the number of foreigners in the Serie A. Given those numbers, it's not very, not just the numbers, it's who's starting. That is more relevant to me. Not the number of foreigners, but how many are starting. Milan 1, Napoli 2 or 3, Inter 3 or 4, Juve 3 or 4, Roma 3 or 4. I mean, when you go down to Bologna and Lecce and these clubs, and you're talking 1 or 2, and Empoli, Empoli is where most Italians start. That's a huge, huge problem. And the gap between the Serie B, where it's mostly Italian, and the Serie A, that's a much more interesting debate. And that the only conclusion I draw is the quality of the Italian players being produced are not good enough. If they were, they would play. And that's again tying back to our previous point that now the shit has really hit the fan.
Yeah, we have to look. We're not looking. Yeah, I think people get triggered and they look at the end result and they just simplistically go, well, Italy are not producing enough players. That's why Milan have only got one Italian. Otherwise they would. Why should Milan have to? I've seen a lot of Milan fans getting really triggered over this debate. Well, why should Milan go out and buy an Italian just to help the Italy national team if they're not good enough? We want to buy. So I think we've got to look at the beginning. We've got to look at the start, the beginning of the problem, rather than the end of the problem. And because this is the outcome of all these issues. I do though think that youngsters absolutely are not given enough of a chance in Italy. And that ends in these numbers because of that. Italy this summer won the Euro under-19s and they got to the final of the under-20 World Cup. They should have done better in the under-21s. They certainly had enough good players to do better than they did. Now, how many of these guys are playing in Serie A now? Have a look at those teams. Have a look at the under-19 winners. Have a look at the under-20 World Cup. How many of those players are playing for Serie A teams now?
That's the biggest difference for me between England and the Serie A is exactly that.
Yeah.
And I think what Italy should do is a homegrown. I think the homegrown rule should be is something Italy should go on.
Yeah.
I think that would raise the value and profile of Italian
There's
players.
no issue with signing foreigners because they enhance the league and the players can learn from the players.
Yeah, of course.
But when you get an issue, when our under-19s and under-20s who are as good as many of these players that are brought in are not getting chances, then that obviously is a problem. And the pathway just isn't there. I mean, Gnonto's talked about it, about how he had to move away from Italy, from Inter, in order to get a chance, because he knew he wasn't going to get a chance either at Inter or at another club. You know, he would have gone down to the Serie C, and he'd have had to work his way up from Serie C, where the level is just not good enough.
I just remember that interview he did that triggered you to the point of
well, you see, that's absolute, but that is actually absolutely the issue. The culture.
This is Allegri's fault.
But this
now.
This is it. This is why people like Allegri are a problem for Italian football, because this is their mentality. This is what the culture needs to change. You don't go down to Serie C. You know, so people like Gnonto had to move out of the country in order to work their way up, because to find a pathway. To
all of this was to bring it down to what this is Allegri's fault.
Well, you know what you're doing there, but you know, I don't think it's right. I mean, look at Milan. If I'm going to criticize Milan, right? They're backup. Their backup for
Giroud.
For Giroud was Colombo, which both of us like. I mean, I think we see there's clear potential there. Of course, he's nowhere near the finished article. He's an unpolished diamond, but there is potential there. Now, Milan, if they were to loan out Colombo, let him get more game time, I'm fine with that. If the replacement they bring in is then someone important.
You say that, but I just see Luka Jovic scoring a hat trick in the derby this weekend, because it's just totally going to happen, isn't it? But
they're bringing in a player that's been a complete flop for 3 years, and they're getting rid of Colombo.
Yeah.
You know, so
I agree.
If they're foreigners that add value to the league, absolutely. But when they're players when I see someone like Weston McKennie taking the spot of Fagioli, for example, you know, then I'm like, well, what is going on here? So
what's the point?
I think that Italian clubs would rather sign a cheap, unknown foreigner than
there are financial reasons for that as well, because of the Decreta Crescita, which was supposed to bring in money to the country and attract investors and capital. That's part of it as well. I honestly think the homegrown rule would be a step forward. I think something similar.
So what would your rule exactly be?
Well, similar to how the Premier League have, pretty much. You know, in terms of that, you know, they demand that certain, if I'm not mistaken, in the Premier League, they have this requirement that a certain share of your squad have to be homegrown players, don't they?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it is. I know Champions League requires that, and that's where Italian teams have a huge problem.
Yeah, but they just no. But listen.
Their third goalkeeper always has to be.
Basically, it's a maximum. From what I understand, 17 maximum of 17 non-homegrown players, and the squad size is maximum 25. I think that's where we are.
Well, that would be a start.
I think
that would be a start.
To be classified as homegrown, one has to be on an English team for at least 3 years before the age of 21.
Yeah, I mean, something has to be done, because, you know, I mean, La Liga, 83% of the players in La Liga are Spanish. In Liga, it's around 60%. And you've got to remember that Spain and France have far more foreigners, far more of their own players playing abroad. Italy, at least now, a few of the players are starting to go abroad more now. Some of our top players, I think that's more down to the league weakening, Serie A weakening, that we're seeing players like Tonali, move abroad. But, you know, Spain and France, I mean, France especially, have so many of their players playing abroad. It's as much about being able to give. I mean, the Bundesliga is. I mean, Germany are in crisis. Germany are in a similar crisis to Italy in terms of player position. They've having been revolutionised things in the 2000s, after Euro 2000. They have fallen off. I mean, they're in as much of a crisis as us. I mean, they've just sacked their manager as well, actually, yesterday, didn't they? Hansi Flick got the sack. I mean, they. You should see their strikers. They're even worse than ours.
Yeah, they got. I mean, Niklas Füllkrug or whatever you said in the World Cup was just, you know, snaggle-toothed random guy they picked off a pub. It looked like it's bizarre. And we're talking about a country that has had Rudi Völler, Klinsmann, Müller, you know, Rummenigge. And
the number of Germans playing in the Bundesliga is actually fallen a lot as well. But I mean, most of Spain, they have that place where the Spanish players can develop. France, Liga has a much larger number of French players playing in Liga, so they can develop there. if you look at the other top nations, Brazil and Argentina, their leagues are all of Brazilians and Argentinians. Now, that gives them the chance for all these young Brazilians and Argentines, even though most of them are very young, to play in their leagues at a reasonably good quality. It's not high quality, but it's a pretty good quality. And then they move to Europe. So they've got that chance to develop, as teenagers or in their early 20s. Then they move to Europe. And in Italy, where do they play at a high senior level in order to get that chance to develop? We just don't have that place for them, because Serie A, there's just, over 70% of foreigners and hardly anyone's playing starting. And then what? Serie B, the quality is so low. It's not like Serie B in the 90s. That famous season that we always talk about, remember, in the 90s.
With Effenberg and Battistuta in the Serie B.
Yeah, but do you remember, in fact, I'm going to find it now while we're talking about
so
it.
So Bierhoff was playing for Ascoli. Vieri
I think it was the 1992-93 Serie
Simone
B
Inzaghi
season.
was in Piacenza. Filippo Inzaghi was in Piacenza, I think. It was crazy. Yeah, Effenberg and Battistuta were in Serie B for Fiorentina. I mean,
yeah, it's insane. Right, so let me find this. Yeah, so this will show you how much the quality was back then of the Serie B. So the 1992-93 top scorers. No, it wasn't 92-93. I think it was 93-94. Yeah, because it's when after Fiorentina got relegated the season.
Yeah, because I remember Battistuta was.
Yeah, so look at these top scorers list. We've got Massimo Agostini was the top scorer. Forget about him. Then we've got Oliver Bierhoff, Gabriel Battistuta, Giuseppe Galdarese, who was a former Italy international, won the Scudetto with Verona.
Agostini was good as well.
Andrea Carnevale, again, former Italy international, Italian 90, won the Scudetto with Napoli. Enrico Chiesa. Then we've got Pippo Inzaghi, Dario Hubner, Christian Vieri. I mean, this is the Serie B top scorers list from 93-94. I mean, so this is so Serie B is a very high quality, and I think that's another thing that's really good for England as well. Is that the Championship is of a very high level. I would say it's top 10 in Europe
without a doubt,
for quality of leagues. So obviously the number of English players in the Championship is much higher than in the Premier League, and that gives them that's a good breeding ground for the players to develop.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, but we're talking about Serie B. Do they even know how many teams are playing in it now? I mean, it's just,
I don't know.
I'm sorry, but this is what I mean.
No, Brescia got reinstated. Brescia finally got reinstated.
Yeah, Brescia got reinstated.
Despite being relegated and robbing my Foggia of a place.
Oh, here we go. But this is what I mean. You have the dysfunction. We're 4 match days in, however many match days we're in now, and you have an unnamed. Look at the Serie B standings. Okay, literally go and look in them. It literally says, up until recently it says team. They inserted a team.
It was the 20th team was TBD. To be decided about 2 games into the season.
Seriously, what are we talking? What are we discussing here?
I love that. Okay, right. Enough of that. I think we agree that there's a big problem here. I mean, the thing is, with the attack, coming back to the attack, though, England put 7 goals past Macedonia. 7 goals. That shows you the kind of level that we're talking about. And Italy struggled to create 3 chances in that game. And that shows the gap in attackers. And the ultimate result of that is, Italy automatic qualification is in jeopardy now. It is in jeopardy. The game against Ukraine is an absolute must-win. It's a must-win because Italy have played 3 games. There's 8 games to play in the group. Ukraine have played 4 games. Ukraine are 3 points above.
And Italy have to win.
Ukraine have already played England home and away. Right?
Yeah.
So Ukraine,
they're not going to drop any more points.
They're not. So away from the Italy games, Ukraine have to play Macedonia at home and Malta. So they're going to win those 2 games. So if they win those 2 games, that means they go 9 points ahead of Italy. Italy then will play Malta and Macedonia at home. So we would expect them to win their games. That puts us back to 3 points behind Ukraine with the 2 home and away games against Ukraine. So in theory, Italy could win at home against Ukraine and draw the last game away at Ukraine, and they'll win on better head-to-head than Ukraine. So in theory, they could do that. But the bottom line is they it's an absolute must.
No, they have to win this. Ukraine. They have to win. They have to take 4 from 6 points from Ukraine. It's as simple as that. Minimum. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
There's basically no room for error now for Italy, and that's the problem. Is can you trust this Italy team right now to make no errors? And that's the concerning thing, isn't it? The final point I want to make is how many. I was gonna scroll back and maybe I'll do it if we don't get a result against Ukraine on Tuesday. Is I was going to scroll back and have a look at Italy's results in September in the last, since forever, because I bet you it's probably a negative record.
It is.
It's probably a negative record. Italy in September, they always fail. And there's a simple reason for that. It's because Italians love their Ferragosto, and we have to start the season late because of bloody Ferragosto. We have to start the season at the end of August, or even in the past, we used to start it in September. Back in the day, back in the 80s, Serie A seasons used to start in the 80s, and as a result, we'd play our September games completely undercooked, and we'd drop points. And I don't know how many times when we haven't failed to qualify, that it's usually been partly down to dropping points in September. so something maybe to think about, but obviously nothing will be done. Right, just before we finish off with Baggio and Prem Face of the Week, what changes do we want to see for the Ukraine game in terms of personnel? I'll tell you who the Italian media think will be the team. They think that there's going to be 5 changes. Now 2 of them are enforced because Politano and Mancini have pulled out with injury. Orsolini has been called up to the squad. So they think that either Zaniolo or Orsolini will replace Politano on the right wing. Scalvini will I know, it's depressing, isn't it? Scalvini, Bologna reserve as a right winger. Scalvini will replace...
Watch him score now. I can just see that.
Listen, I'm more than happy to jinx him. More than happy to jinx him.
No, it was so funny because our good friend Patrick Kendrick, he was tweeting saying, Orsolini getting called up and his biggest hater, Nima, and he tagged me saying his biggest hater is like I'm not his biggest hater. I just don't think he's good enough for Italy.
Certain people said that he was going to be
having better than Chiesa, but yeah. Well, certain people have too much time on their hands. Yes. All I'm saying is if you have the time to go to the cinema and watch one and the same movie 9 times, maybe you need to do something about your life and find better things to do with it. Anyway, move on.
Films about destroying the world, yeah. Right. So Scalvini instead of Mancini. Locatelli is expected to come in for Cristante. So that obviously will give Italy more ball quality. But, we've done to death about us not feeling that Locatelli is a 6.
No, but listen, if he's going to play Locatelli, this is the thing: Fratesi, Locatelli, Barella, or Pessi. Like, what is he going to do?
Yeah, they feel that Tonali could be dropped for this game, and that Fratesi or Pessina will come in. I kind of feel like Pessina would be a better fit for Spalletti's system of a 4-3-3 going into a 4-2-3-1. I feel like he might be a better fit. I mean, I feel that Fratesi's.
So who's going to be the regista then?
The regista is going to be Locatelli. I mean, that's obvious.
Okay, so Locatelli there, and then you put in Pessina.
Barella will be right Mezzala, and then Fratesi or Fratesi's right Mezzala, and Barella goes left Mezzala. I think it'll be Fratesi as the left Mezzala.
I'm tired of this. Everyone playing Barella until he's like.
Right. You want him to be rested for the derby?
Yes, I do. I'm tired of everyone just looks at Barella as this it's all right. He's suck it up, Nicolo. You can get on with it. It's like you're gonna burn him out. It's
I think that's happened quite a bit in the last 2 years already.
Yeah, and I don't like that. It's just because he doesn't complain and he just always gets on with it. It's like
the other position that could change is the left wing. As Sakani's not guaranteed a starting spot.
He shouldn't be. Raspadori should
Could be Raspadori or Gnonto.
Oh, God. Yeah, look, if you're going to play Pessina, I wouldn't play Raspadori.
Would you make any other changes? Would you drop Immobile? Would you bring Retegui in?
I would start Retegui in this game. I really would. I would do that.
So then you're starting your entire... That means you're changing your entire front three.
Yeah.
And this is just not good. I mean, it's just not good. I mean... How are we going to have any kind of fluency in the team if we're changing our even changing 2 of the 3 attackers? It's just not good. I know it's necessary because they were terrible, but this is we're basically choosing between 2 bad options here. You know, whether we're talking individually or certainly collectively, this is not good.
I
making so
think
many
that they
changes.
should build around Retegui and Scamacca. I've said that in the past, and honestly, I think Scamacca and Retegui is who I'd build.
We need to find a way to win this game. I don't care how we do it. We need to find a way to win this game. And I'm just thinking, making all these changes is not ideal. Keeping the same team is not ideal. Like, whatever we do, I'm worried.
Just win. I don't care how it looks. Just win. The love of God, I don't care. Just win.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And from now on, stop, call up the best fit players. Scamacca, Udogi, all that stuff.
Well, he could have called up Scamacca. He still could have had the chance to call him up after Chiesa went out. And he
but he needed to have a winger. I mean, he's obviously going to take a winger for a winger, and Scamacca's not a winger.
But I'm talking... No, but I'm talking about after Chiesa went out.
I know.
He didn't call up anyone.
Yeah,
he called up Orsolini to replace Podlitana. So he still had a space available. He still could have called up Scamacca even as late as yesterday, and he decided not to. So I mean,
we'll see.
I don't agree with that. Okay, let's finish off with Baggio and Prem Face of the Week. Do we have a Baggio?
We do. We have a Baggio. I saw one of the most beautiful goals I have ever seen in Luxembourg, I think it was. Bosnia played. Bosnia won that game, but the goal that I think it was Luxembourg. Let me just double check. I can't remember. I just remember seeing that goal, and I was just completely blown away. It was. I'm looking now. It was Bosnia. I can't remember his name. I'd written it down, but I forgot it now. But it was one of the most, that is how you shoot a volley. It's genuinely, it was Liechtenstein. It was Liechtenstein. Go and look for Sandro Wolfinger's 2-1 goal in the 21st minute. It's one of the most beautiful goals I've seen in a very long time.
Liechtenstein, eh?
Yeah, Liechtenstein.
Or Lichtsteiner, as one of my friends calls him.
No, Bosnia beat Liechtenstein 2-1, and Sandro Wolfinger's won, cutting the deficit in half in the 21st minute. Wow. That is a Baggio of the week. That is how you shoot. That is how you take a volley. It's from a corner, the ball goes out high, and he just directly on the volley smacks it. It's the curve of the ball is just wow. It's truly, truly unbelievable. One of the goals of the season, without a doubt. So definitely go check that out.
Okay, check that out. Prem Face of the Week. Nima, you have it. This is gold. This is one of the all-time greats.
It's just, I don't... I'm not... Sky Sport UK were tweeted out one of their employees, one of their journalists, one of their top guys, Kaveh Solhekol, who I don't really have that much time for. I don't think he's very good at much. But when your own employer can't even get your name right in the tweet, and they left it out for a good while, and they called him, it was Kaveh Solihull, that place in Birmingham. Like it's a part of Birmingham. And his name is Kaveh Solhekol. And it's like, and they just pushed it out, and I just couldn't stop laughing. It's just so funny. Like they literally couldn't even get the name of one of their biggest names right. It was so funny, and it was up for a good while before they deleted it. And the best thing of all is that most people didn't even notice it. That's the best thing, because they do. Most people didn't even reflect on the fact that was.
What did they call him then?
Solihull, like that Solihull. Part of Birmingham. Like the place there,
oh my
very,
God.
very, very, very funny. It was. I just couldn't stop laughing.
It reminds me of when I've seen this in the past, when certain British or English newspapers or media, they use Google Translate to translate from Gazzetta or from Marca or from some foreign media. They put it straight through, but they make the mistake of putting a person's name through Translate as well, and then it turns their name into like.
This is so good because I remember Andrea Ranocchia became Andrew Frogly.
Yes,
which is so funny.
Yeah.
Andrew Frogley is incredibly funny, and like, you know, what was it? Nicolo Barella becomes Nicholas Stretcher, and Alessandro Bastoni become Alexander Sticks. And it's just it's so good. It's so good.
And that happens a lot. That happens a lot.
Does. Yeah, Nick Stretcher is incredibly fun.
Brilliant. On that note, we will leave it. So we will be back on Tuesday for Q&A, and then Thursday, probably Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah, for the review of the
Italy game and
Italy. Yeah, Italy against Ukraine. Sorry, must have been game. So we'll review that, and we'll look ahead to the weekend. There's the Milan derby, Juventus Lazio, some huge matches this weekend. Okay, right. Have a good week, everyone. We'll see you next time. Ciao, ciao.